Hello, this is Jen from Red Toad Art Studio, and today we are going to do the last in our Pumpkin Week series. We are going to watercolor our pumpkin. Now, if you would like, you could download our How to Draw a Pumpkin instruction sheet from our website. I have already drawn my pumpkin, inked my pumpkin, and taped it down. It is ready to go. I have my swatch, my paints, my water, my brush, and I think that's about all we need. Now, we want to try to do a different method of watercoloring today. I was playing around with sections of a pumpkin here, and what I want it to be as smooth as possible. Now here were some of my first tries. Look how messy they are. But I have found a very interesting way to get this very smooth gradient. So we're going to try that today, and I hope you enjoy this. As usual, we need to spray down our watercolors. Get them nice and juicy. Now usually I mix all my colors that I know I'm going to use over here ahead of time. But I want fairly intense colors on this pumpkin, and as you're probably aware if you use the Crayola brand, they're not always that intense when we mix them with water. So today we are going to use straight from the pans, which means you really need quite a bit of water in these paints. So I am going to add a little more water to this orange that's next to, let's see, this orange, it looks like it's red. It's next to black. It looks like, my goodness, that's not orange, but it is. I'm going to add some extra water to that. We're going to use brown. I'm going to add some to that. And I'm going to add some to my yellow right here that's next to that orange. So we can get some intense colors down by using straight from our pans. Of course, you'll need something to wipe your brush down and water to clean your brush. Now we're going to do something entirely different. Probably breaks every rule of watercolor. But we are going to get some water on our brush. We're going to start here with this middle section. We're not going to do totally wet on wet. It's kind of wet on wet. We are going to wet our pumpkin, not to the edge and not to the center. We're just going to do, about here and around. And so this little area, these lines around, it's like a oblong area here, is wet. And now we are going to dab our orange into that wet spot. Now, you probably can't see it on camera, but when you do this live, you'll be able to see the shiny spots where you added water. And we're going to dab our orange into that, just like that. And you could go a little farther out that way if you wanted to. Get a little more good orange in there. Whoops, that's more than we need. And now, this is going to be weird. Our idea is we want to move this color out to the edge. And this will take some patience. But, you know, art usually does take a bit of patience. Going to do this all the way around. And move it out to the edge. And it's still not a very intense orange. Now, if you have a different brand of paint, you can get more intense colors. But, you know, we don't have to have it real intense today. In fact, though, I'm going to add a little bit more down here to get a little more intensity. There we go. Move this out to our edges. Okay, now we're going to do something else that breaks the rules of watercolor. Usually you are advised not to go back and mess where you've already put color. But the way we do this, we're going to mess a lot. We're going to go in and smooth it out by butterfly touch, as light as you can with your brush. Going over that and trying to smooth your colors out as much as possible. I like to call that the butterfly touch. It's very light. That's how you get by with this. We don't usually use that light of a touch, and if we do a heavy touch, we just pick the paint right back up again, and that doesn't look so good. See how we're even getting a line here? Now, I am using mixed media paper. It probably will work much better with watercolor paper. I think this is a 98-pound mixed media. We're going to go in and smooth it out, especially where we're getting edges that are starting to dry and show us that there's an edge there, which we don't want. Now, we've smoothed this area out, and you may have to go back and smooth every once in a while. We don't want any hard, dry lines in this. Now, we're going to kind of feather it into the middle, just with little slight wispy strokes. Now this method isn't hard, but it does take more time than the other methods. We want these to come through here, which will eventually grade into our yellow highlight. You see how that's working? I hope you can see that well. Just little lines bringing it in. And now we are going to do the tiny little circles to smooth that edge out. And this kind of work takes a little bit of time. We don't want any hard edges going from one color to the next. You see, like this hard edge, we don't want that. We want to smooth it right into this little lighter bit that we put down when we did this. And it may take doing little circles over it several times before that disappears. And if it gets too dry, you might have to dampen your brush just a little, but not much. You don't want a drippy brush. You want a fairly dry brush to do this, or you'll get watermarks on your painting, which you won't like. Next step, we're going to use brown as our shadow color, and it's going to go right around the outer edges. So clean your brush, dip into your brown. Be sure there's some on the end of that brush, but not too much, and dot it right along the edge. I want a little more on it than that. There, like this. It's just dotted around the edge where we want our shadows to be. Always think at least 3 colors. The base color of your object, a shadow color, and then a highlight color. So next we're going to, again, move this brown out to the edge with light little feather touches. That way we don't disturb the paint underneath it so much. Think of it that we're just moving our pigment, not blending it so much with the paint underneath. Now, as you can see, this is already starting to leave the edge. So we're just going to keep moving it over there. Kind of like we're corralling pigment, keeping it where we want it. This is much more of a method where we try to control our pigment. A lot of our watercolor, and the fun of watercolor, can be letting it do what it wants to do. But sometimes we want it to do what we want it to do, not what it wants to do. So you kind of have to keep at it. Keep pushing it to that spot you want it. Different paper will do this differently too. Now look how far that moved out. And if you have puddles, be sure and just pick them up and wipe your brush on your paper towel. All right, we're going to smooth some more. Remember that little circular motion? Let's do that over this. Butterfly light. Maybe lighter than butterfly. Now I like to have my dark area come up a little farther on the bottom too, because it will be more shadowed towards the bottom if the light is coming from the sky. All right, now let's do our little wisps in from the brown like we did with that orange. Now we're going to do that little circular motion around these edges and blend this into the orange. This may take you a while. Now my mixed media paper is really arguing about this. So if you have watercolor paper in the house, use that. I think it will be a lot easier to get the effects that you want. Now, I'm going to clean my brush, and it's time for some yellow. Our yellow is going to go straight down the center. We don't want to pull dark into yellow as much as we want to place the yellow in the middle and push it out a little bit. Again, our little circles work wonders, and we've got some hard lines here, but the water in our yellow should soften our lines up if we keep working at it. Now be sure there's no hard lines, and just blend our colors together as much as we can. Try to avoid pulling the dark up too far. It will come up a little ways as you blend that hard line where it meets the orange, but hopefully not too much. Now I don't like how my brown has settled here, and I think this is kind of something because it's Crayola. Every brand of paint will act a little different, and so you just have to learn the quirks. Before that dries, we go smooth it out again. And every combination of different paints and different papers and different brushes will have different responses. It just comes with experience, figuring out what each will do and how you can fix it. We go over and over these edges. You will need to practice this method several times and with different types of paint and paper and figure out what works best for you. There are many different ways to get effects in watercolors, and also go online and watch other artists and see what they do, and you will find what method works the best for you and what you have. Now we need to do every section of our pumpkin just like we did this one. So it will take a while. Now when you start your next section though, don't go to this section right next to this one unless you've let this set so long it's nice and dry. We can work on this for a long time. So it just depends on how patient you are and when this starts to look like how you want it to look. This is not something we usually do with regular watercolor, is go over and over and over it like this. Alright, so I am going to do this section next. So remember, just to review the steps, I won't make you watch that whole thing. Get your brush clean and wet and a line inside. Don't touch the black line anywhere, just do inside. And then dot it with your orange inside where you just put the water. And then move these to the edges, these little dots of water. Then remember to bring it in just a little bit and do a soft swirl, and then put your brown on this edge and do the same thing. So I will be back with you after I've done these other sections. I forgot to hit record, and I am to this point on this leaf, but you know what? I will show you from the beginning on the next leaf. How's that? Finish this one up, and I will show you on this next leaf. Here we go. All right, we're using the three greens. We're using dark green, medium green, and light green. So our medium green will be the first color we use. So get your brush wet and do our edge, well, almost to our edge, outlining our leaf here with the wet water. You can kind of see it. There's a little bit of green in my water now. Just like that. Now let's get our medium green and put around the edges. Woohoo! My medium green is quite juicy today. There we go. Now we're going to push our green out to the edge. Bring that in a little bit. There we go. And now I'm going to do my little bit of swirly thing and often dry it off on your scrap piece of paper towel or your rag. This helps this process, I found out, greatly down here. As I say, remember we are using mixed media paper. I think this is 98 pound weight. And Crayola watercolors. So we're using the less expensive materials, and sometimes they can be harder to work with. And when you can afford it, then it'll be great for you to upgrade. This would be easier with regular watercolor paper. Now let's go into our dark green over here. It looks almost like a black. Go around our edges to get our dark edge of our leaf. push that dark out to the edge. We are so close to being done with this picture. There's definitely an ugly stage to this. Right now, this leaf looks horrible. So don't give up when you're at the ugly stage. Keep going because you'll get it past that stage. But if you stop at the ugly stage, it'll be ugly forever. Here we go. Now, we do our little circle blending. Constantly wiping that off on our paper towel. Probably want to allow yourself a good hour to paint this, maybe an hour and a half if you're very picky. Now we're going to blend the edges here and get our light green. And put that right in the center and get that blended in. Now, I'm actually probably driving true watercolor professionals crazy with this method. And you may like it or you may hate it. But it's worth giving it a try. Especially if you're using the less expensive materials. All right. I think we should do the stem next. This is a shadow area. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and paint that a black. Be careful because I just got that wet, and we should not paint wet against a wet spot. But I don't want to keep you forever on this video. So you take more time at it than I'm taking. Be sure you give good dry times between wet spots. There we go. Now, I think, do we want this brown or dark green? I am not absolutely sure. I think I'm going to do this dark green. My pumpkin's dark green, and it's late November. Its stem, anyway, is a dark green. So we're just going to go with that. Okay, and then I think, I actually think I'm going to use a little bit of yellow on this end. I need to clean my brush. We'll see what yellow looks like. Now, we have a little bit of stem here. Again, I think I'll just do that the medium green. Fill that in. And then I'm going to keep that medium green on my brush and run it over my vines. And that is easier said than done. My hand is not very steady today, so hopefully yours is. Here's one of them. All right. Now, you could leave it just like this, or you can put a little blue sky in the background. Here's one where I had some blue sky in the background and some grass on the bottom. And now it will probably be sitting in some brown grass or out in a field. So I do think I'm going to try to add some brown grass down here. And maybe would pay me this time to mix up some light brown. So, do you remember how to mix? A dab of colors, maybe just 3 or 4 drops. Go over and get you some brown and mix it in those drops. We usually do this for every color, but this time I wanted to use them out of the pan. Now, on a scrap piece of paper, let me show you. To do grass, let's see, get right here. Flick up, just like that. See how we're getting grass? That's what we want to do down around the bottom of our pumpkin. It's a little scary after you've done so much work on a picture, then to go in and do something like this, like, oh, am I going to ruin it? We're actually going to do a little black in there too to give it some depth, but let's do it with brown first. Now let's kind of get rid of some of this paint here that's too much. Alright, you could also use green there. And now I'm going to dab into my black, and this is a scary thing to do. I want to add some darker blades of grass in here. Now this is entirely optional, and you won't know if you like it till you're done. But also, we don't want our pumpkin looking like it just is floating out in space somewhere, do we? You could do this with 2 colors of green down here too, if you'd like it to look a little earlier in the year. This is also a shadow area, so I'm going to kind of add a little more black here at the bottom, just to kind of fill in that. Now, I'm not sure whether I like this or not, and actually you usually don't know till it dries. So just give it a whirl. You know, you can always do this picture over. You may want to do it several times until you've found out just exactly how you like to do it. The only other thing you could do, you could add a little blue around the outside areas for your sky. And I will add a little, and again we will want to mix our blue this time. That's probably 4 or 5 drops, which may be much more than we need, because we're just going to lightly put some blue in. And I want to use sky blue, which is not wet. There we go. So let's mix that around a little bit. I don't want the sky to be standing out very much, and that's probably enough right there. Let's try it on our scrap piece of paper. It'll do. So all we want to do is just dab in some sky. We're not going to get real picky with it. We just got some blue sky up there. If you wanted a fancy sky, it probably would have been a good idea to have done that at the beginning, but this will work just fine for what I want anyway. A little bit here, and we're done. So let this dry, sign it, date it, and enjoy your pumpkin picture.